This point perhaps has to be stressed, like in one of the, I forgot which one, G or F. It says gender experts. What does that mean? Women? Or men with gender perspectives? So I think we have to be inclusive in a way that both men and women who have gender perspectives should be to get in there. And that's why now sometimes in our gender training, we bring men in. Because in a way that men could associate with this man who has the gender perspective. So that's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry ha, huli na lang. This did not came from our group, but came from the morning session on the thematic discussion on women, food security, and climate change. There was a discussion that said we need to highlight the issue of inequality and climate injustice. And I think I would agree with you that we really need to have a stronger statement on inequality. In this morning, in the synthesis, we said that we should recognize the persistent inequality within the community of nations or states, the persistent inequality within countries, meaning rich and poor in our countries, and the persistent inequality within households. So make a stronger statement about those persistent inequalities that in the first day, it was said that climate change exacerbates these inequalities. And the second point was that further elaboration, developing countries, for example, produce less greenhouse gases and yet bearing the impacts in greater intensity. Developed countries contributing hugely to global warming, but pay this off in terms of aid, not in terms of just compensation or reparation. The further elaboration was that between women and men, statistically, it has been proven that women have lesser carbon footprint, but bearing impact in more intense ways. For example, food insecurity, and women are driven to risky activities in exchange for food. The example from the Pacific Islands was that there is sex for fish. No? Women climb boats and engage in sex work so that they can get fish to feed the family. Another inequality manifestation is that consumption of food is very unequal. Those who produce the food eat less. So those are the points of inequality that maybe needs to be strengthened in the declaration.
This came out of your morning thematic, and it was reported as part.
Remy, can you pass the mic to
Yeah, it has
Tracy,
already
please?
been part to be considered by the rewrite thing, so we don't have to bring it back here.
Tracy's.
Okay?
There's a comment. One last comment, please, and then we'll come back and consolidate
Our
the comment.
rapporteur is putting together all the comments from the different tables.
Okay, my comment actually incorporates a couple of these things, and I agree that obviously there's gender equalities that maybe need to be more explicitly clear. I would like to compliment the people who did the original draft, however, and that I think it really does try and address the causes of those injustices. Lack of participation, lack of resources, lack of accountability, etc. So I think we could clean this up maybe so that's sharper, but I think we're going in the right direction. If anything, I actually feel as if what this lovely woman said, I agree with her a bit, that it's pointing the finger a bit too much at men, kind of, even though we know that gender experts means male or females who have a gender perspective. I don't know if that's clear here, and that it's a little bit blaming. And to be very frank, I don't think we have time on this planet anymore to play the blame game.
Yeah.
And we have to start working with our partners, and that includes men. And just two other quick points. That if we start including indigenous populations, which I agree with that they're marginalized and we might need to, we also need to include elderly and disabled, in which case we're changing the focus of this. So we have to think about whether or not we want to do that, and maybe we do. And then lastly, her comment, the last woman's comment, I just want to elaborate that It is true in developing states that women have a smaller carbon footprint, but that's not true in developed states. In fact, the carbon imprint for genders just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until there's virtually no difference in developed states. So that's something to think about.
Yeah. Okay. For purposes of time, can we, are you finished? Not yet.
Yes, we'll put it on the screen now.
Okay.
Put it on the
So what our rapporteur is doing is putting together all the came from your desk, and so we can review it. And this will be passed on to the people who will put together the output this morning. I don't think they will sleep tonight. Please look at whether your input was considered.
Must be provided adequate support and financial and technical compensating mechanisms on improvement of livelihoods, capacity building, technological transfer. Huh? Okay, I think there was it'll be revised. I think she needed to update something. So that stays? Item 1. Next one, compensating mechanism for poor countries. Is this financial? I guess okay, next one is add to declaration on documentation of gender responsive best practices related to climate change must be institutionalized for sharing and replication. So this is a recommendation. Okay, go down. To urge rich countries to step up immediately a mitigation and adaptation fund available for developing countries. This should be managed by NGOs. Okay, we'll correct it later then. But the concept of it, so this idea of a fund, you would like to keep this? Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's better, huh? Okay. To demand, urge ASEAN to have a clear stand on climate change mitigation based on historical responsibility. I think the phrase we will revise, is it from the paper?
Can she just repeat it? Come on.
Wait, I will repeat for the rapporteur. No? Number 2 is to urge rich countries to set up, not step up,
Yeah,
no? To set up immediately a mitigation and adaptation fund available for developing country governments as well as NGOs.
Yeah.
Developing country governments, as well as NGOs, and to be managed by a new intergovernmental institution.
And to be?
To be managed by a new intergovernmental institution. Okay. Yeah.
The next one is to demand, urge ASEAN to have a clear stand on climate change mitigation based on historical responsibility
Historical principle.
principle, right? Okay, so that will be amended.